Good evening, everyone. Welcome to FPL BlackBox on the 1st of August, just a few weeks to go until the season starts. We've got something a bit different today, haven't we, Mark? There's a new face around these parts.
Yeah, I thought we'd look at the promoted teams in a special edition. This won't be like a regular black box. We'll have data and we'll have lots of tables, but we're only going to look at one team tonight. We're not going to look at drafts because our drafts are changing all the time, and you see, there's plenty more to come from us. But tonight we've got Mr. Dan Ashby from Gaffer.io. Gaffer, if you don't know, is the original championship fantasy football. Dan, welcome to Black Box. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do on Gaffer.
Hi, Mark and Az. Thanks for having me on Black Box. Yeah, my name's Dan. Luton Town fan, was correspondent for Planet FPL last year for Luton. Been involved with Gather. It's coming up to their 5th season now. I host a Gaffer podcast with Angus. We do it weekly. And I'm looking forward to talk.
Dan, you're a championship expert, I hear, which is I'm the opposite of that. Since Brighton got promoted, I just do not follow the championship.
Oh, la-di-da, yeah. You don't have to worry about that, do you?
Well, you don't even, Mark. Come on.
Well, I don't know. I'm always
It was close, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was close. Yeah, Dan and I had a bit of a rivalry last season in more ways than one, didn't we? Because not only was our teams tussling, but inexplicably, while our teams are struggling in the FPL correspondent in the Planet FPL correspondence league, me and you were top, weren't we? Nip and tuck.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. Then I didn't pick any Palace players, and Palace killed me. So I think I'd finished. I can't even remember 25k. So. Right. It was one of my better
we're not here to talk about last season. Come on. Well, I mean, we kind of are, but not ranks, please. I've had enough of that.
No, absolutely. I've just realised I've left my shed door open, and any minute now my dog's going to be let out, and that's going to make a hell of a noise. So, hold the fort while I shut my door.
Oh no, we want to see a bit of Nigel. No tech problems this time, but Mark's managed a shed-related problem, which is probably a new one for us.
There we go. I'm back. This is live, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, let us know if my mic is okay, by the way, because I was a bit low earlier, but I think I'm all right now.
No tech issues.
As you were.
Shed issues now, Mark. That's a new one.
Yeah. So obviously with Gaffer, if any of you guys, I know you got a few thousand probably watching live. If you're interested in a new game, it's massively changes every year with 6 new teams, 3 relegated, 3 promoted. No season is ever the same. Championship, you two will both know, is probably the craziest league in the world with unpredictability. So throw that in every week with 9 boosts every year. Some creative one, Jeepers keepers, double points for keepers, things like that. Away days. It's a very unique game.
I wonder if one of the mystery chip in FPL is going to copy some of the Gaffer ideas, because the Gaffer ideas are really good in terms of the chips.
Yeah. So please, it's a great community. So if you want to learn knowledge and the players that will probably be in your teams in 2-3 years time, like Elise, Doughty, Tony, there's many more. Hopefully we'll have a few more this year as well. So it's a really enjoyable game, and it starts next weekend. You don't have to wait 2 weeks. You can just starts next weekend. So
the madness begins a week early, doesn't it? Of course, I've just realised I probably got us removed from YouTube already by showing too much skin. When
no. No drugs on this. No drugs on this stream.
Any children watching for that? Yes. Let's crack on, shall we? Let's get going because we've got some
crack on. We've already done that, haven't we? With your jeans around the ankles.
You saw it. You saw the joke. Very well done. Oh, we've got to talk about our sponsors because we're hiding the logo. Sorry about that, Fancy Football Scout. Well, we'll talk about you now. The app came out today, didn't it? Just a few hours ago, in fact.
It did, and it's super smooth. It's really nice. So iPhone users can grab the app now. It's on the App Store. Android, I think, is coming tomorrow. But make sure you get it. You link your team ID, then you can do all your FPL plan stuff, Plan FPL stuff, which is great. You've got all the comparison things, you've got all the articles on there. It's a really, really slick app. It's not just like they've taken the website and put it into like a window on the app. It's like a proper good app. I'm really pleased. It's been years in the making. So well done to Sam and all the tech guys for getting that done, because it's really, really cool.
No, it feels good. It's good to have that app on. It means we've got Scout in our phones, so when we're out, we can do those stat raiding last minute transfers that we love to do. And yeah, that's good. I mean, it's going to obviously get better and better as the seasons go on as well. But now the app is out, it's going to be here to stay. So that's great. Is Mark after Manscaped and sponsor? We don't need that, Matt. I don't know what I showed now. I'm getting really worried. Anyway, let's move on. Right, let's start looking at some data, shall we? So I want to start by looking at home and away records. Obviously, we know Leicester City won the league. Ipswich was second. Southampton came out through those dreaded playoffs, something that Dan and I know a lot about and have suffered a lot in previous seasons, of course. The thing that stands out here with this graphic, we're just showing the home form and away form. At home, Ipswich 54 points, Leicester 52, Southampton 48. Not too much there. But what stands out for me, Dan, straight away, just one home defeat, just one defeat at Portman Road. So presumably in Gaffer last season and in your experience playing the game, the home form for Ipswich was a big factor throughout the season, right?
Yeah, as you can see, it was a key factor, but it didn't really matter too much in Gaffer terms because they were a promoted side. Their assets were massively underpriced, so pretty much everyone had 2 or 3 Ipswich throughout the season. It was just trying to pick the best ones at the right times. We'll get on to some of the players, but yeah, having Leif Davis at 5 million in Gaffer was a bit of a cheat code.
Dan, are you trying to say then you got the prices all wrong? This pricing business is quite difficult. So...
I mean, it's hard. Most of the League One clubs go straight back down or finish bottom 6. So we've had a couple of teams recently. Obviously, Ipswich went all the way through and Sunderland got to the playoffs the season before, but they very rarely finish any higher than bottom 8 in the Championship when they come up from League One.
So do you think, looking at this, the form at Portman Road, I mean, like, Forest and Luton both the same, the home form is always so important for the promoted sides. So of the 3, do you think that's going to be more of a factor for Ipswich, or do you think it's going to be the same for all 3 teams?
I think it'll be the same for all 3 teams. If you're a promoted side, you need good home form, otherwise you haven't really got a chance. There will be a racket though at Portman Road. They haven't been in the top flight for a long time, similar to Forest and Luton. So those games, especially night games, are going to be very tricky. We saw Luton compete quite well even against the top. We done better against the top sides. We lost most of them, but we gave a good account of ourselves, and I'd expect less all of them to do very well at home. Away will be a different story, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and my memory of Portman Road, I've been there. my only memory of Portman Road is going there for Forest in the Championship. I think it was first game of the season, no, it was in the Premier League, and we lost 4-1. And it was a miserable day, first day of the season. But Portman Road, unlike Southampton Stadium and unlike Leicester Stadium, is an old school ground, isn't it? A bit like Kenilworth Road, a bit like the City Ground. And I think you're right, the noise will be there, and that'll be a factor, won't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Some of these so-called superstars don't like these old-fashioned grounds. It takes them to get used to. So yeah, the atmosphere at Portman Road is going to be a key factor if they've got a chance of staying up.
There wasn't much in it, was there, between the 3 teams, just looking at the home and the away form? I mean, obviously away was a bit different, but I didn't realise Southampton were so good at home, for example, just 5 losses, which is the same as what Leicester had, essentially. I've just written Southampton off this year, to be honest. Is that what the general consensus is?
We'll see if that changes by the end of the show, won't we?
Yeah.
Right.
And I know they didn't go up, but Leeds were obviously involved in this.
Yeah.
There was basically 4 teams that were miles ahead of everyone else. So the standard of the championship was probably quite high since we saw, I can't remember what year it is, probably Wilder, Sheffield United, Bielsa's Leeds. I think it was the same year Derby and Villa went up through the playoffs. So the top of the table were definitely a high standard. I'm not convinced the rest of the league was as good as previous seasons. Like there was a massive drop off, even from when Luton went up. Obviously, Luton and Burnley and Sheffield United weren't as good as these 3 teams, but I think that the league was probably a bit more competitive.
We're going to look at some Opta data now. This is the Opta analyst website, because I found some good data on here, and rather than try and turn it into our tables, I thought we'd just browse the site and have a look at that, because this goes into, strangely, I don't understand this, data limited to players with at least 900 minutes played. It's team data, so I don't know what they've done here, but I did notice that the data wasn't complete in terms of goals scored and goals conceded, so I don't know whether they've limited it to XG from players that have only played 900 minutes. Don't understand that. But it's still useful analysis, because it did show me a few things that I wasn't expecting to see. Obviously, if we sort by goals, open play, it's no surprise Southampton, Ipswich, Leeds and Leicester. Exactly as you said, Dan. Those 4 completely way out in front in terms of goals scored.
Yeah. I think Ipswich got over 90 goals. Like I said, there was a massive difference from the top 4 compared to the rest of the league, and you only had to watch the playoff semi-finals to see Leeds and Southampton both comfortably won their semi-finals in the second leg. So they were all very good attacking sides. I'm sure we'll get onto defence, where I have a bit more question marks about them all. But it's always really hard, because these teams go from being able to attack, have a lot of the ball, to being in the Premier League, where you'll probably only have 30% of the ball, and it becomes a lot more of a counter-attacking side. Yeah,
we're going to look at style in a bit, because I think that is absolutely crucial. Shots as well, they absolutely dominate. They're in the top 4 again. Leeds are the gate crashes there. Same for XG. But what was interesting, when you look at set play, that's all from open play. When you look at set play shots, the team with the fewest set play shots is Leicester City, only 125. Was that something you were conscious of last season? Was that something you were aware of playing Gaffer, that they had no threat from set plays?
It's weird, because they had Vestergaard who scored a few goals, Fass as well. I think, I'm not sure if they got a lot of corners or set pieces, because Maresca is pretty similar to Pep with Man City, where they just keep the ball. I don't know if that played a factor in it.
Actually got 11 goals, which wasn't the lowest.
Yeah, they got the 11 goals. The XG was amongst the lowest from set plays, but obviously I imagine they took a lot of set plays short then under Maresca. Was that the style?
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, they were a threat when you've got Vestergaard, Fass. They could take it both ways. So, do
you think that'll change under Cooper, Mark?
Well, we're going to get to that when we get to style of play. That's a big question for Dan. I'm definitely going to ask that. But let's look at goals conceded first of all, because you mentioned about some concerns here. If we look at the best defences in the Championship last season from open play in terms of goals conceded, Leicester were at the top. Then you have to go down a bit to find Ipswich, who conceded 40 goals from open play. And then Southampton are down there on 54. Now, that is surprising, isn't it? I mean, Southampton actually conceded a lot of goals last season. We saw it in the away form there. I think they were -1 for goal difference. So you're saying that you're going into this season with concerns over the defences. Which of the teams are you particularly worried about, or is it all 3?
I'm probably most concerned with Ipswich and Southampton. I think Leicester struggled a bit against the counter attack, but it's a completely different manager. Cooper, I don't think will get caught out quite as much on the counter. So Ipswich and Southampton. There were games earlier on in the season, especially for Southampton. They went through a 4-game period. I think it was September time where they conceded 3 or more goals just because they were trying to get used to how Martin wanted to play. You got Bazunu trying to play out from the back. You got Bednarek, Stevens. They were learning how to get used to Martin's system, and it took them a while to adjust to it. So that was a worry for Southampton. Ipswich, they've come up from League One, so we'll probably get on to McKenna. Without McKenna, Ipswich are nowhere near getting promoted. Their squad was basically top end League One players to Championship, bottom Championship players. So for McKenna to get the output that he did with their star players, pretty unique. So they've done a couple of signings, Ipswich, but I'm not sure they've done enough to sort out the goals. For example, Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United all went up conceding less than 40 goals.
Yeah, so that's a scary fact. Yeah, for Southampton in particular, that's worrying, right?
Yeah, like you think what Sheffield United conceded over 100 goals. Luton conceded 70, 80 goals. So
because I was just going to say that we you mentioned that obviously there's the 4 teams last year, and we're looking at those stats now. But I mean, the year before that, I mean, Burnley were ridiculous, weren't they? Like 101 points. Sheffield United got 91 and 91. And then Luton on 80 only lost 8 games, which was less than Sheffield United overall. So it looked like when those 3 teams came up, it was a similar thing. It's like, oh, these are like good teams. They're going to like shake up. And I was so disappointed with Burnley and Sheffield United last year. Like they were awful. Didn't give us any fantasy options at all. They just, every week you expected them to get battered. Luton at least put up a fight, and we had some assets like Barkley and Doty from them. But do you have a better feeling about these 3 teams than you think they'll get on than those teams did last year?
I'm mixed. I think
that's not the optimism I was hoping.
I know. If you'd have asked me before, I'd watch Luton play 25, 30 times live, I'd have said differently. Leicester, I think Leicester's going to have a problem with, they're probably going to get points deduction, but I do think under Cooper, he's going to set them up properly. They've still got a lot of experienced Premier League players throughout their team. So I think they could be okay, Leicester, but if they get a significant points deduction, you'll probably worry.
I'm just not sure where their goals are going to come from with Leicester, because Vardy up top, but is he going to start? Daka hasn't exactly impressed too much. They've lost Dewsbury Hall.
They've got the Fatwa and Mavididi, who are very good on the counter-attack. So I'm guessing, Mark, you'll know more than me, but having watched Cooper a couple of times, a few seasons in the Championship, he'll set them up properly, and then counter-attack will be a key approach to them trying to win games.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a look at style of play, because again, on the same screen, in the same article by Opta Analyst, there's a view here of passes per sequence and direct speed of attack, and it gives you an idea of the how quick and direct teams are in the Championship last season. And Southampton were the most intricate and slow build-up team, other than Hull City. And then you look at Ipswich, and they were far more fast and direct, a bit more towards the average. And then Southampton, I'm trying to look for Southampton now, and amongst the badges.
Southampton are right on the right.
Yeah, right outside.
Leicester and Southampton were the proper passing sequence.
Yeah,
darlings.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, because we saw when Vincent Kompany came up, he stuck to his principles. He stuck to that style of play. Maresca's left, and we'll talk about the difference that Cooper can make in a minute. But Russell Martin, I know from experience, having watched his Swansea team come to the City Ground a couple of seasons back, loves to stick to his theory of passing, slow build up that this diagram illustrates. Do you see him doing the same mistake that Company did and not adjusting, not playing low blocks, not trying to play on the counter and trying to play the possession game, and just the players not being good enough? Is that a concern?
It is a concern. I was very. I didn't know how good Martin was because he started at MK Dons, took him to mid-table, and because of the style of play, he becomes fashionable, sexy. So Swansea then signed him up. He gets to mid-table, leaves again for Southampton, and he got him promoted, which was probably the bare minimum. But he, like I said, there were teething problems at the start of the season when the players were learning his philosophy, and there were at times where you're like, just go a bit more direct here. And he wouldn't. But I will give him a bit of credit. He did change things up a little bit in the playoffs. He became less bothered about possession, and he ultimately done a job on Leeds and Farker in the final and won the match. So, I'm hoping that he won't be as stubborn as Company, because if he is, I think they're going to be in for a long season.
Yeah, I mean, Maresca's Leicester is right up there, like you said, as almost alongside Southampton in terms of the slow build-up, the intricacy of their play, lack of speed and directness. But obviously Maresca's not there, and Cooper's team won't look like this when they do a chart at the end of the season. Cooper, as I know very well, will play low blocks, very low blocks, and will play on the counter. And you're right, the two wingers for Leicester will be a threat. So I think Leicester's style of play is probably most geared up to staying up. But tell me more about McKenna's style of play, because this chart indicates they are more counter-attacking. They are a fast-breaking team. They don't pass the opposition to death. So tell us more about your knowledge or your experience of the Ipswich style of play under McKenna.
So obviously, with Ipswich just coming up from League One, they weren't. A lot of teams didn't give them the respect at the start of the season. So obviously teams were playing a lot more open. So it enabled Ipswich to get the ability to counter-attack on them a lot more times. But one thing is for sure is what they do is the right back, which was last season Harry Clark or Twanzebe at the second half of the season. He basically sat to make a back three, and then Leif Davis basically just bombed up all the way to left wing, which is why you get the crazy stats. He was basically playing left wing. In front of them, you'll have two DMs, which obviously screen the back three, and then they've got wingers and number 10s who are quick, agile, who will be able to score goals. So you had Chaplin, pretty good long range. They managed to get Hutchinson back from Chelsea, which on the face of it, you think, well, 18 million is a lot of money, and it is. But he was a key player towards the end of the season, scored a lot of really important goals. So the striker won't be, I don't think they'll be prolific like they've got Hurst, and they've signed Delap. They more want them to be multifaceted, so can run in behind, hold the ball up, but I wouldn't expect them to get a lot of goals, if I'm honest.
So Yaz has already put Leif Davis in. Yeah. Like, even before we did this show, you said beforehand you've put Leif Davis in. I mean, it does sound like the kind of player that we should be interested in, right? We'll look at his data later, but do you think that Danny will be playing that left wing role in the Premier League? They'll push him up just as far, or do you reckon McKenna will be more cautious with it?
It's really hard to know, because we had occasions last year where they got torn apart. Leeds hammered them. and they just targeted Leif Davis's side because obviously he's standing on the other edge of the pit, and you've got like Dan James or Nonto with pace. So it'll be intriguing. I don't know if he'll be quite as gun ho, but
captain your right wingers against Ipswich then.
Yeah, probably a good shout.
They've got an easy right winger in the first game at least. He won't cause any problems.
Yeah.
But it is intriguing, isn't it, with Salah going there and him playing on that side. I mean, anyone going in with, I mean, surely if he's going to be pinned back in any game, it's going to be this one. But I mean, McKenna won't want to do that, will he? On the opening day, home crowd, he'll want to impose his football on with Liverpool. So it's a fascinating scenario, that one, that opening game, isn't it, Dan?
It is, yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see because every team in the Premier League are very good on the counter attack. Even the teams at the bottom of the table, they all have two quick wingers and strikers. So, yeah, I think to summary, I think Davis will probably have a similar season to Doughty, but probably I wouldn't be relying for them for clean sheets. I don't think.
Well, funny you should say that. We've done some comparison, haven't you? You've done some maths on that, haven't you?
I have. And yeah, if he has a similar season to Doughty, then I'd take that. I think because he was fantastic. The more I've looked into it, the more I agree with that. I'm not sure when we're going to show those stats, Mark, but
yeah, I mean, we'll show them right at the end. But I just want to touch on one thing here, and that's the data in this bottom table. We've got passes per defensive action, which is a really trendy stat, which is emerging, which basically indicates how well a side presses. And obviously, Southampton at 10.5 were the most impressive on the press, the best in the division. Leicester were third on 11.1 and Ipswich 11.3. So all three teams relied heavily on pressing. And when you look at the goals scored from turnovers from those presses, Leicester scored 12 goals. Now, that's not going to happen in the Premier League, is it? Because the teams that they're playing against are going to be a much higher quality and will be able to break the press. But do you think all three will come up and the press will be just as important to them as it was in the Championship? Or do you think that will change? It will change for Cooper, but I'm talking about Ipswich and Southampton in particular. Do you think the press will be a feature of their play?
I think it will be. Whether they'll be successful in it is another thing. Like Luton were pretty good at pressing in the Championship, and then you get one thing wrong and they cut through you in a couple of passes. I actually, like I mentioned before, I actually think Leicester City, I know it's not so much with the counter, but I think on the counter, Leicester could be quite dangerous this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think as the stars
if they win it high.
Yeah, Leicester, I think, will adapt better under Cooper because Cooper's been there. He's done it with Forest. He knows what it takes. I think with Russell Martin's Southampton in particular, because they relied on that press the 82 shots from turnovers in the final third, only scored 6 goals in that. But obviously that was a key factor in their success. And I don't see it being as successful for them in the Premier League at a higher level. But it'd be interesting to see if they try and press high and see how successful that is. But we've got to anticipate that. I mean, that it took ages, didn't it, for some of the players to adjust to Russell Martin's style. And they did concede a lot of goals early on. So that's the risk again, isn't it? That they're going to come up, it's going to be a different standard. And Russell Martin's he's not going to change that style.
Newcastle away as well.
Yeah, they're going to get thrashed a few times. Do you see that? Do you see big scores against them?
Yeah, I think so. What I will say is, unlike Burnley, they signed their 2 key loan players in Harwood Bellis and Flynn Downs. When Flynn Downs didn't play, Southampton were a completely different side. So they've got 2 of their key players from last year, which is a major star because they know how to play the system. Southampton did sign a couple of young centre backs, Wood and Edwards, who are highly regarded in like lower England, under 21s and under 18 levels and things like that. But whether they're thrust in is
did Bazunu improve at all? Because he was pretty rubbish. last time he was in the.
Yeah, he cost them a few goals. He's not a great shot stopper, to be
No.
honest, but he's pretty decent with the ball at his feet. He got injured towards the end of the last season, and they had to play Alex McCarthy, and he's completely different. He's
Alex McCarthy's still around.
Yeah, still
Yeah.
around, and he'll
He's
start the
been
season
around.
for him. Yeah,
He's been around for donkey's years, isn't he?
but he was obviously better at catching and shot stopping, but couldn't play out from the back. So
no one wants goalkeepers who can catch and shot stop, do they? That's going on. It is funny, isn't it? Because that is that new kind of new regime for keepers and new school of thought when it comes to goalkeeping. It's not all of the ability with your feet is important. And Bazanu is one of those keepers. He came from Man City, of course, didn't he? So he came from that cultured football kind of requirement that Pep puts in place. But that's all very well and good. But if you can't save shots, that's going to be a big. But particularly in the Premier League, it's going to be a major problem. Do you see McCarthy keeping that spot then, or do you think Martin will just go back to Bazunu because of the style of play?
I don't think Bazunu is going to be fit for the start of the season. I think he's done quite a serious injury, so they might even go out and sign someone, to be honest. Yeah,
you'd think they would do. Yeah, okay. Well, that's going to be an issue. I mean, Harwood Bellis is a popular defender, 4 million, but I don't think we're expecting too much in terms of clean sheets. But maybe it's a set piece threat that we're looking at there. But I've got I'd probably put more stock in the Ipswich defence than Southampton's because
he's 15% owned. Harwood Bellis.
I know. Yeah,
massive.
Yeah, but I see it because he is a regular starter. And obviously, you've got to pay 4 or 5 for Life Davis. And then you look at the Ipswich defender. I mean, maybe Johnson, the new signing, Ben Johnson, who's got Premier League experience at right back. But as Dan said, the right back is very far, should be held back alongside the centre backs to form the back three. So he's not going to get forward a lot. So I can see why Harwood Bellis is popular. We'll talk about them now. Let's go on to players and start looking at the Gaffer data. So this is Leicester, first of all. It's sorted by number of starts, and Face, he's another popular defender, isn't he? And obviously at set plays, we saw Leicester didn't pose too much of a threat. They did score 12 goals, but their XG and numbers of shots weren't great. Under Cooper, I think that could improve because he's going to surely cite set pieces as one way they can cause problems to teams, and he may well play a back three or keep the back three. Have you ever considered going for Wout Weiss over Harwood Bellis for a 4 million defender, Dan?
I don't want to give away my draft after I picked it in about 10 minutes because I don't have either of these as.
I'll give it away. You haven't got any promoted players in your team.
I have.
Oh, you have? Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, you lied to me, Mark.
I thought you didn't. That's fair enough. But you did it very quickly, so that's fine.
I did it very quickly. I think if Vestergaard's 4 million, I think I'd go for him as the better 4 million for aerial threat from Leicester. But I did want to mention the goalie Mads Hermansson. He's another one of these who are very good with his feet, but he actually had the highest XG prevented. So he's also a good shot stopper. So you don't normally get both of them. So I wouldn't rule out Hermansson as
he was a pretty big upgrade on the Warden Everson debacle, I'm guessing.
Classic.
Yeah, those are the days. Start with both of those last year. That went well.
I wouldn't rule him out as a 4.5 million option in a Cooper side.
Yeah, because Henderson started well for Forest under Cooper, so until the injury, so he looked good as a 4-5 option for a while. So and I know Hermansson was Maresca had him on the shortlist to bring him to Chelsea before they signed Jurgensen. So yeah, he obviously rated him as well. Sorry, how's you going to come in there?
I was just going to say one of the questions I had was on the defenders of Leicester, because I'm not sold on the Harwood Bellis Southampton defence. I just think that's got a disaster all over it. So I'm looking at Leicester and thinking, I think Cooper will sort them out and make them a better defensive side. And I like James Justin and Pereira because I think they can obviously get bomb on a lot forward. But if you are looking at one of the 4 million men, it's interesting because I was looking at between Face and Cody potentially, and then you've dropped the Vestergaard bombshell. I wasn't even considering him.
Well, Cody came in during last summer, quite a big fee, but he got injured during pre-season for quite a while, and then he just couldn't force his way back into the side. He did have a few appearances, but it might be all different under Cody. If he plays a back three, maybe he gets in, but I wouldn't go for Cody unless you know.
Vestergaard, you think Vestergaard's pretty safe then in that?
Yeah, like I said, if Cooper's playing him, which I think he probably would, especially if he's playing a back three. So it's really hard because they completely changed style of manager. So Maresca was like inverting fullbacks, and like Pereira played centre mid for most of the season. So yeah,
are you trying to say Cooper's old fashioned, Dan? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I tell you, if you're inverting Chowdhury from right back into DM, that'll be interesting under Cooper.
Yeah, I don't see him doing that. But you have mentioned Mavidi and Fatowu already as probably the main threats. I've highlighted them here. I know Mavididi is loved by the algorithm because with Vardy off the pitch, he's on pens, isn't he? I mean, that's the kind of accepted narrative on this from Leicester's point of view. And we don't expect Vardy to be on the pitch too much. He'll probably start the season and he'll make enough appearances, but there'll be plenty of times when Mavididi is the pen taker, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you got Bobby Decadova-Reed's come in as well, so I don't know how he fits into the squad. I don't know if he'll start. But yeah, Fatowu, especially after Christmas, was he's very young and raw, but he's an exciting player and done very well towards the end of the season. And yeah, they're just very good on attack, Mavididi and Fatowu. So yeah, if you're looking for a midfielder, it's probably them.
Is Fatowu you doing so rare, Mark?
I tried to. I lost the
2 a.m.
20 quid I tried to put on Fatowu because I do like him, and he's only 20 years old, so he is a young player coming through. 6 goals, 13 assists last season. Mavididi with the 12 goals, 6 assists. They kind of shared the load, didn't they, in terms of providing goals. Dewsbury Hall was key, 12 goals, 14 assists, 26 goal involvements. Yeah. So how do they replace that, Dan? What do they do there?
You don't replace that. They basically had Winks sit in. They had, like I mentioned, they had Pereira tuck in alongside Winks, and they basically had Dewsbury Hall, and I know it will sound a bit strange, but Ndidi as box-to-box 8s. Yeah. Obviously, Ndidi's not as good quality-wise in doing that. So, but yeah, Dewsbury Hall was, if you're talking about a talisman, he was basically it. The number of games he won on his own or rescued points on his own was incredible. And like I said, he was the best player in the championship. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he gets in the starting 11 for Chelsea.
Well, I think he will, because Maresca knows him very well, and he's going to play that 8 or 10 role that he played for him at Leicester. Do you think we're sleeping on Dewsbury Hall? Do you think, like, I'm not seeing him in any teams at all, and I think he'll have him one side and Palmer on the right side playing similar roles, and everyone's going to be on Palmer and Cuckoo. Dewsbury Hall's 6 million, I believe, but I've seen nothing of him in teams at all. Right?
I think Cuckoo's price is the problem, isn't it? You're not going to pay 6 million for Dewsbury Hall when you got Nkuku.
They could have made 5-5, I think, because Gallagher was 5-5 last year, wasn't he?
Well, they could have made Nkuku more than 6.5. Really. That's what they should have done. But you're absolutely right. When that happens, it is a shame, because I do think Dewsbury Hall is going to make an impact in the Premier League, and I think he's going to be a really good player to watch. But you're absolutely right.
We could have had him.
The Nkuku price have killed him.
Brighton could have had him, but Tony didn't want to pay the 35.
Perfect for Brighton, I think. Who's going to get the goals then? It's going to be the wingers, you think, Dan? And because they've not signed a striker, Vardy's still there.
18 goals for Vardy though last year.
Yeah, but
fair play. 18 and 18.
Can he get double figures again? Dan, do you see that?
Surely not.
I don't know. We write him off though every year, don't we? They have to get in a striker, Daka. I'm not even sure if Daka's a footballer half the time, but yeah, Daka's just not consistent. They got Tom Cannon, but he's rumoured to be going out on loan, and Iñárritu's no longer there. So, they need a striker, I think.
He had a good reputation, Daka, didn't he? Because remember when he signed from Salzburg, he had like a ridiculously good scoring record. And I think a few people punted on him in their teams.
His composure, though, it's so bad.
Another German Bundesliga tax player.
The German tax, yeah. Doesn't work, does it? Let's look at Ipswich, because this is a bit more healthy from a fantasy perspective. I think there were two players here that we're going to drill into in a bit more detail in Leif Davis and Amari Hutchinson.
My boy. New
boy. Absolutely. Your boy now. I've also kind of highlighted Connor Chaplin here, who played in the 10, 13 goals, 8 assists from him, and Leongo, who is the holding midfielder. I've highlighted him because he's 4-5 and he's kind of like alternative to Winks, isn't he, really, in terms of popularity for that 4-5 role. Are those the right 4 players, Dan, highlighted, or is there somebody I've missed there?
Obviously, Leif Davis is a no-brainer. I couldn't go near Massimo Luongo. Centre mid is a problem where a position where that they need massive investment. Luongo or Morsey aren't good enough for the Premier League. Having seen how hard it is when you've got Ross Bartley, Sambi Lokonga, and Marvis Nakamba, and all 3 of them are better than those 2, that they massively need to invest in centre mid. I'll be going nowhere near the Luonga. I like Amari Hutchinson. I know he's got a lot of sub appearances, but he took a while to break into the side. You have to learn McKenna's system, but like I mentioned, a lot of those goals and assists came towards the end of the season. I know he's been struggling with injury to start with. I think he hasn't even played a game, so I'm not sure he's a week 1 or 2 punt. I'm not sure any of them are with Man City and Liverpool, but I think Hutchinson could be an option throughout the season. Chaplin, I'm not sure he makes a step up either. I think he's got more of a chance of Luongo or Morsey, but I couldn't go there.
So it's all
fill
about
with confidence.
Davis.
This squads, does it? Like, you look through it. You see Brandon Williams in there. You got Hurst. I remember him. I mean, Sarmiento isn't there anymore because he's come back to us. Come back to Brighton. Kiefer Moore. Remember him at Bournemouth? He did all right for a bit, but he was never really an option. I don't know. Doesn't look great reading.
Yeah, in terms of quality, they've really. I mean, obviously they've sealed Hutchinson on a permanent deal. They've got Delap up front, but you think it's central midfield they're really going to struggle because they haven't made any signings of note there as yet.
Yeah, they're going to need 2 or 3 there, in my opinion. Obviously, Hadkey's gone to Burnley. They brought in, they basically swapped. They've got Muric, who's obviously another one of these goalies that are good with the ball at the feet. They've signed Jacob Greaves, which are highly rated centre back, left footed. He fits the style of play. Like I mentioned, he can play. He's predominantly a centre back, but at times at Hull he did play left back, and I'm guessing he's going to sort of try and cover the massive hole that Leif Davis plays when he bombs down the wing. They signed Connor Townsend today, backup left back. I think that might be it. As you mentioned, and also Johnson, who, is he even a Premier League player? He's been at West Ham a while, but he's probably bottom half Premier League. And like I mentioned, I think he's just going to tuck in and act as a third centre back a lot of the time.
Do you see, because they've come up from League One and they got that promotion straight away, do you see there being a bigger jump for them as a result of that? As in, they might have 5 or 6 players that just are nowhere near the level required at the Premier League. Yeah, to Leicester and Southampton.
Yeah, I think they might take a while to adjust, similar to Luton. They might go through a few games where they struggle until McKenna finds a way. I think McKenna's adaptable, so he could change to like a proper 3 at the back system, things like that. So I'm not ruling Ipswich out completely, but having seen Luton squads, for example, Adebayo and Morris are better than Hurst and Delap at the minute, in my opinion. They might have a higher ceiling, especially Delap, but I'm worried about Ipswich. But they'll probably sign a few more players, I think.
But I mean, so obviously a lot of people are looking at Salah and Haaland teams now. Do you think there is every chance that Ipswich are going to get a good hiding in one or both of those 2 opening fixtures? Because it's a nightmare start for them in terms
awful,
of being able to settle.
Yeah.
So do you see there's every chance they're going to ship goals in those 2? I mean, the stats would presume so, but everything you said tonight has made me worry about not having Salah and not having Haaland, basically.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if I don't start. I think Salah's game week 1, so if I don't start with Haaland, I'm going to want Haaland in game week 2, I think.
So there's no danger. There's no danger of them going to the Etihad, playing a low block and getting away with a 2-0. You actually do think they will get beaten heavily?
Yeah. They might score. It might be like 3-4-1, but it's not nice. You've probably got to judge them after those first 2 games.
Yeah.
So
it's a good run after that.
It's
Fulham, Brighton, run. Southampton, Villa's tough, but West Ham, Everton, Brentford, right up to game week 11. Really, that's when they need some points.
Luton had a similar run. You think it's so-called winnable games, and because you're adapting to the level, it takes you a while to pick up points. So, I don't mind if you want to leave Davis and for the first 2 weeks you have him on the bench. That's fine, because I don't think you're going to have Leif Davis for clean sheets. He's going to be for attacking and threat through, whether that's through open play or set pieces.
Yeah, I mean, 125 chances created really leaps out here, and we'll look in a moment about how that compares to Premier League defenders. But that is extraordinary, isn't it, from a left back? I mean, by far the most creative player in this squad. I mean, the next one is Chaplin, I think, on 51, Wes Burns on 52 chances created.
Morsey's on 52
Sam Morsey,
as well.
52. Yeah, I mean, so by far and away the most creative force. I mean, do you think that'll be the same this season? You know, Hutchinson's there full time, may start more games, but you still think that Leif Davis will be their major creative force, a bit like Doughty was for Luton, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Is he on set pieces?
Yes, yeah. I don't know if he's on. I don't know if he's on every set piece like Doughty was. So like you say there, he's on corners and free kicks. So, Davis is going to be a great pick at stages throughout the season. It's just, can you get him at the right time, and are you benching him when he returns?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very similar to Doughty, and tonight later on we're going to make that comparison. But it is, isn't it? Because I always fancied Doughty when you came up. And then it was just about finding that right window to get him. And if you did, and you got off him at the right time, I think towards the end of the season when you suffered a load of injuries. And I think it'll be the same for Davis. There'll probably be a 10-game week spell when he's absolutely going to be gold. And it's just finding that moment to move for him and then not holding too long, because they will concede lots of goals, won't they?
I think so, yeah. That's what fantasy is all about, picking and choosing the right spots and making the key decisions. So...
I think a lot of wild cards, if we go early, game week 4, game week 6, we'll look at Davis at that point. Let's look at Southampton. Perhaps, obviously, you know, they came down the season before last, so they perhaps got a stronger grounding. They did sign a lot of young players, though, so they still lack experience throughout this team. Adam Armstrong, Harwood Bellis, and maybe Smallbone are the ones that I've picked out here. Would you go along with that? Do you think Smallbone sneaks into the thinking as well? 5 million, he's their kind of playmaker, isn't he? He'll play in the 8, I think, rather than playing deep. Do you think it's those 3, or do you think there's other names there that we should be pulling out?
I think it probably is those 3. I don't hate Walker Peters, but
Mm.
I'm not sure if you're not going to choose him over Davis.
No, he's 4-5, isn't he? Same price.
Yeah. So yeah, for me it's only two options really. It's Adam Armstrong up front or Harwood Bellis just for the 4 million.
What about Diaz?
Yeah, Brereton Diaz, we'll talk about, because he's come in as a midfielder at 5'5". That does change things a little bit, doesn't he? Because he had a decent season with Sheffield United and has experience at high level. Can get goals, could take pens, but I think Adam Armstrong's going to be on them. Do you see him adding something for Southampton? Do you think he'll make a difference? Do you think Adam Armstrong will play deeper as a result of Brereton Diaz? How do you think that'll work?
So Adam Armstrong played from the right wing a lot last year, but he still was getting into a lot of chances. Obviously, they had Che Adams, who is no longer there. Ross Stewart, who they do have, was basically injured. I think he only played might not even have played a game. So it'll be interesting to see where Armstrong lines up in that front three. I would guess Brereton Diaz will probably play on the left, like he did for Blackburn, and I think at times he played there for Sheffield United as well. So. But they do have a lot of these young wingers as well, like Sulemana, Adozie as well. Brooks isn't there, and Fraser. I think they might be trying to get him back, but I think he was only a lone player. So, I think if we think Adam Armstrong's playing right wing or forward, I think he could be an option. I know people will be put off with his 2 seasons previously, but it's Martin's different manager, different style of play. So yeah, I like Adam Armstrong.
So do you think then of the players we're going to highlight now, Davis, Hutchinson and Armstrong? Armstrong's got the most experience at this level, and obviously comes up with a lot of goals, 21 goals, 13 assists. Even with Brereton Diaz arriving today as a midfielder, do you think Armstrong of those three is probably the surest bet, or are you leaning towards Davis?
Oh, I'd pick Davis.
Right.
Yeah. Although I've contradicted myself because I've got Adam Armstrong in me draft. But
yeah, but that's Davis's opening 2 fixtures. That's why, right?
Yeah. But it's more of a placeholder. I think Adam Armstrong, but. Yeah, I think the 2 most popular will probably be Davis and probably Harwood Bellis going into game week 1, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at Davis relative to the Premier League, because as you put these tables together, and his XGI non-penalty puts him right up there, doesn't it?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's level with Trippier. I mean, obviously, this is not taking into account of his Premier League tax, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But if he had the same season in the Championship as he had in the Premier League, you can see he's ahead of Porro, for example, 0.26 XG on penalty per 90. Ahead of like Estupinan, who's obviously got loads of attacking potential. Doty was on 0.21, so it would have been ahead of that as well. So yeah, he's in the top 6 for XG on penalty per 90, and his chances created per 90 is second best to only Robertson. So higher than Trent is the chances created in the Championship. And I mean, to get 18 assists is that a record? It's got to be a record, isn't it, in the Championship?
I think Toffolo got a lot one season, didn't he? Toffolo got about 15 for Huddersfield, I think.
I think for defender it probably is. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
for any other position.
Got to be.
0.31 is an impressive XGI non-penalty. The question is, and we'll look at tax in a minute, do you think he can maintain that level? You've said already that you think he's going to be the main creative outlet. Obviously, Ipswich will take time to adjust, but so it might be 10 games in before we start seeing Davis really come into his own. Do you think throughout the season, maybe 10 game weeks onwards, we'll see Davis creep into the top echelons of these tables?
Yeah, I think so.
Right.
Like it's on set pieces and things like that. I'd probably put him down to probably about similar to Doughty, might be higher than Doughty.
Look at the minutes as well. I mean, he started 43 games, played 3,700 minutes over the season. Doty played 34 of that. He missed a couple of games, but he was pretty much never present. But there's no danger around his minutes. It doesn't seem to get subbed off or anything like that either. He's such a key figure in that attack. It's such a shame he's got those two games to start the season, because I just don't know if it's the best play to start with him, because he could drop to 4.4 if they get battered 5-0 in both games. You can actually pick him up cheaper when we wildcard in Gameweek 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think he's a wildcard target, isn't he? Basically, that's the thing.
I think he probably is.
That's the reason. You're not going to play him in those first two. But, I mean, there's no doubt his potential here. We'll look at the tax that could be applied to him in the comparison to how Doughty got on in a minute. Hutchinson midfielders, and I think we've arrived at a conclusion that probably Ipswich early season, they've got work to do in terms of their midfield. Davies being their most creative outlet, so therefore that's going to perhaps limit the role that Hutchinson plays in terms of getting assists. And looking at his XG on penalty per 90, 0.41 would have put him 48th in last season based on midfield. I mean, as it's fair to say that, it doesn't look like he's going to make that impact early season unless he really takes a big step.
Yeah, I mean, he had 20 starts compared to the 40 of Davis or whatever it was. So it took him a while to break into the team and get going. And as Dan said, towards the end of the season, that's when he contributed with some of the key goals. But you want to see these stats being 0.6, 0.7. You want to feel that he's like at the heart of everything that Ipswich do, and it just feels like everything either gets shared around all those attacking positions, or it all just comes from Davis on the left. So I just don't think we're going to be picking him. What is he? Is he 5 million? 5.5?
He's 5.5. Yeah, he's in that bracket. He's in that bracket with Hudson-Odoi and Minte as well. Obviously, two wingers who, I wouldn't say Minte's proven at the Premier League level, but he's proven at a higher level than Hutchinson is. And obviously Hudson-Odoi got 8 goals last season in 20 starts. So, will Hutchinson do that? Based on
I just don't know when we're ever going to. Yeah, when are we ever going to go there? When are we ever going to play him? He's not going to be a bench option for us. And are we going to want to play him in an 11 at any point? Don't know. Can't see it.
2.71 shots per 90. That's not high. I mean, that's his championship shots per 90 as well. So when he's going to have to make a big jump in against better quality defenders. It's not looking great really for Hutchinson, is it? Don't think that he's going to be a factor.
I mean, it's level. It's slightly higher than Son. Son's is 2.61 in terms of those shots.
Yeah, but the tax he applies to that.
Well, yeah, exactly. This is what I mean in the championship, and as we're going to see, with the stats half almost for those midfielders and attackers if we base it on equivalent from last year.
It means with Dewsbury Hall going, Dan, we don't really have a midfield option that stands out amongst promoted teams, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm trying to think of any of the signings coming in. Might be Brereton, Diaz, but is Deco over Reed if he starts playing? Is he?
Are we ever going to go there?
I think he's 5.5, and
there's no 5 million, is there? So, yeah, I think they're a massive wait and see, the midfielders, I think.
Yeah, I'm just checking Deco. Yeah, he's 5.5 again. That's
not paying that.
That's a bad price for him.
We're not paying that.
Let's move on to Armstrong then, because he could be one player who does tempt us. Dan, you described him as a placeholder early doors. They have got good fixtures. We'll look at the ticker in a bit, but his 0.64 XG on penalty would put him up there around the likes of Gakpo, Alvarez, Chris Wood, Jackson, just under the likes of Callum Wilson. He's on 0.71. Jackson ended the season 0.69. Wood 0.65. So he's in the top 10 for XG on penalty. If he translated that to the Premier League, 1.51 shots on target per 90, again in the top 10, and chances created, I think that's probably because he played some period out wide, again would have been in the top 10. He's had a season in the Premier League. He'll probably admit himself that was a fail, but do you see him doing a lot better this time round, Dan?
Yeah, I'm not sure he could do much worse, to be honest. Yeah, I think it might be similar to maybe like a Carlton Morris, where unfortunately we probably won't get as many double game weeks as Luton did, but there might be a run where you need a cheap striker to enable Salah and Haaland, and maybe he's got 3 or 4 nice good fixtures, and he's worth being in your squad. I don't think he's a terrible first sub option if you want to play 5 in midfield or something like that. So
It's the
5-5
penalties as
on
well.
pens. Yeah. It's about it.
Getting a 5-5 pen taker is worthwhile, I think. And there's João Pedro there, who's now back playing. Looks like he's going to be fit for the start of the season. I guess as you feel he is going to be a starter either in the 10 or the 9. So that maybe puts
I guess so, but also we have so many attacking players that can play in those positions. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure that Pedro is the better option. I mean, Armstrong can go out right and things, but he's going to play more. His expected minutes is going to be higher than Pedro's, unless Pedro lines up as a 9, because Ferguson obviously has regressed and has had injuries. Welbeck is getting on a bit, so maybe he sees Pedro as an out-and-out 9. If he's playing as an out-and-out 9 for Brighton, when we haven't really got too many other options, and he's on penalties, and he's 5-5, then he's clearly the best pick. But I don't really know what's going to happen in that 10 if he plays in the 10. He's not going to play on the left. He played on the left a lot last year. You haven't been doing that with Matoma around. So he's either in the 10 or as a 9.
Dan, do you reckon with the Brereton Diaz signing today, is that putting Armstrong's stock up or is stock down in FPL terms?
I think it's probably stock up, I think.
Right.
Better attacking players, I think.
I mentioned, the benefit of having Brereton Diaz in the team, it will raise his Armstrong stock.
Also, they played together at Blackburn.
Yeah.
So they sort of know each other's games. I think the big question is who's going to start through the middle. Will it be Brereton Diaz? Will it be Armstrong? Or are they going to try and get another number 9 with Che Adams not there? So yeah, I think it's better having Brereton Diaz in there.
How do you replace Che Adams? It's a problem that many managers have faced in the past.
I owned him
because Forest were looking at him for a while, so he'd do a job.
I owned him for bloody ages. That guy.
I didn't realise that, as I didn't want to bring that pain back for you, but I'm glad I did now. Premier League tax. Then we presume there is such a thing. It's interesting because you've mentioned Doughty, you've mentioned Morris, and as it was Doughty and Morris, along with Gus Hamer, who we took to have a look at. The likely tax that we could apply to Davis, Hutchinson and Armstrong. Just talk us through this, because it's quite interesting. Massive tax on a couple of them, right?
Well, it's very anecdotal, isn't it? It's comparing completely different players in completely different systems with that. I do appreciate that. But I mean, Doughty is a good example because he was a marauding attacker in the kind of Davis mould. And we've had marauding attackers come up in previous seasons, like Doherty when he came up with Wolves. He was amazing. Then came up, had another amazing season. Like we've seen that kind of can work when you're looking for when teams are getting attacking returns from defenders. And actually, Doherty's expected goal involvement in the Championship barely changed. Really, down 8% from 0.25 to 0.23. But yeah, not a massive change, especially when you compare it to Hamer. And again, we struggled a bit to know who was kind of the best options that were in Sheffield United and Burnley, because when you think about the Brownhills and all of those, it probably was Gus Hamer, because he had next year on penalty of 0.42 in the Championship. That dropped to 0.28. Yeah. I dropped to 0.28. He scored a couple of screamers, didn't he? But overall, he was being tipped. I remember at the start of the season as being the one to watch, because he had that kind of power drive in him and could do things, but it didn't really translate. And then Morris as well. I mean, had such a good season with Luton, 0.52. That dropped to 0.32. He was an option for us at points in the season, but obviously with other strikers emerging and Luton's injury crisis and all that, it became a bit difficult. So that dropped, like I said, to 0.32. That's nearly a 50% decrease. So if we take those completely different players and apply that same tax, Davis still does really well, because he's only dropping from 0.31 to 0.29. That's still putting him, I think, in the top 10 of defenders if that happens, which at 4.5 would make him a great option. Hutchinson would go from 0.41 to 0.25. So he was already poor compared to other midfielders at that number anyway, and it's even worse. And then Adam Armstrong at 0.64 dropping to 0.33, which I think is quite likely, especially with Diaz and with other things. I don't know, with his role. I think we might see that dropping quite low. And Southampton genuinely, I think, are going to struggle the most. So you're going to be quite reliant on penalties, I think, with him. Maybe the odd goal. Is he going to get 10 goals next year, Adam Armstrong? It would be a hell of a step up from his last performance in the Premier League if he did.
So for Just I think Morris got 11 and Adebayo got 10 last year for Luton.
So you saw it firsthand, didn't you, Dan, in terms of the jump up in what you can expect from those players. But they still did well. They still held their own. But I think the system and style of play really did play to them. Whereas I don't know whether Southampton's style of play is going to translate as well as Luton's did, because you cause teams trouble no matter who came to Kenilworth Road in particular. That direct style of play was, and Barkley pulling the strings. Southampton, it will take time for that their brand of football to be effective, I think, and it might never get to a point where it's effective unless they get more quality in their team. So that's going to hold Armstrong back. I think it's a good comparison, Armstrong Morris. I think they'll come out around the same 11, 12 goals. Is that what your feeling is, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. Morris, I think, scored 4 or 5 penalties, so you could, maybe Armstrong does the same. So yeah, I think it's fair to compare them.
But I think out of this, it's Davis that stands out as well. It's interesting because I think what we're getting from...
I'll put him in my team after this.
Yeah, I know. What we're getting for tonight is Ipswich are probably the most... Their style of football could have the biggest impact soonest, because I think that Cooper's style won't be attacking enough. It rely on counter-attack, and it'll be very difficult to find a player to nail down that target that really stands out as an FPL asset. Southampton, I think, will need time for Martin's style of football to settle in. And it's like Vincent Kompany. It might be, will Martin keep playing that way? So Armstrong is obviously the target. But Davis stands out because I think that what I'm getting from this is his creativity will remain a key factor for Ipswich. And they might actually settle soonest or quickest in terms of McKenna's style of play being so vital to their prospects. Do you agree with that? And is it just not just because Davis is the creative player, but also because McKenna's football, you think, will translate quickly to the Premier League, Dan?
It's hard to say it's going to do it quickly, but when I think about what Davis could be on set pieces, high and wide, it's very similar to what Doughty was, and I just see there's a lot of comparisons that could happen with Davis as well. So he's not even reliant on getting that forward. If Ipswich keep getting set pieces and he's able to swing them in for the 2 centre backs and either Hurst or Delap up front, he's going to create chances. So I think Davis, as we mentioned, is going to be an option at some point.
If we look at the ticker, once the first 2 are out of the way, as was right, it's Fulham at home, Brighton away, Southampton away, Villa at home. Yeah, I wouldn't mind owning Davis for that run. And it's whether or not you want to go in with him and bench him for the first 2. But I guess that's what you're looking at as, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, the only issue is you get him in, they get thrashed, and then he drops to 4-4, and then you regret it. But you would have him in place for those games. The only issue is I'm probably going to be going in with 2 Fulham defenders because I really like the start of their fixtures. So then am I going to want to play Davis up against, Muniz, for example? Obviously but maybe you just accept that Ipswich are going to concede and you just write off the clean sheets completely for that and just think, okay, Ipswich, West Ham, Newcastle, Forest, he can get at those teams and he might pick up some attacking returns. So I'm looking at the wrong fixture, sorry. I'm looking at Fulham. Where's Ipswich? Fulham, Brighton, Southampton. But I think particularly those first 3, straight after Man City, Fulham, Brighton, and Southampton. He can do some damage there. So I really want him. But am I going to play him over Robinson in game week 3? Like if Fulham's got Ipswich, that feels like that's a 50-50 that's just going to be I'm going to get it completely wrong already.
At 4-5 and then not playing him.
And then not playing him.
Because you're backing his attacking returns, aren't you? I mean, I want him as well, and it's like whether or not I can find that extra 0.5 and you should go Conser at 4-5 rather than going Davis. Really, that's the algorithm pick. That's the sensible pick. Davis is maybe the Glass FC pick, isn't it? Yeah, I know it is. Yeah, I
just don't know what I'm going to play him. Like if I've got Robinson or Castagna, and you've got Leicester, Ipswich, West Ham, Newcastle, Forest, like benching him in any of those games feels a bit wrong. So I don't know. If there was like a part of a rotation, I could kind of work it out then, but I'm not really sure I'll be doing that. I mean, maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. He's definitely on my radar. I think all the stats I looked at today, make me think I'm probably going to end up starting with him and trying to play him as much as I can, but it probably won't go too well.
Southampton have got a good run after game week 1. I mean, they go to Newcastle, where I do think they'll get tonked, but after that they've got the opportunity against Forest, Brentford, United, Ipswich. I mean, they're going to have a crowd there. It's going to be good. The atmosphere will be there. So Armstrong could come good in those games, which is why he does run, João Pedro close at 5-5. I think the pens too. Ipswich just need to get the first 2 out of the way, and then we look at Leicester, and they've got a run which it looks like it's blue. Spurs, Fulham, Villa, Palace, Everton, but that's not an easy run. Then they go into Arsenal. I think Leicester are an avoid for me. I just don't see them tempting me at all. And obviously Cooper, I don't know what we're going to get, but I can anticipate it's going to be fairly defensive, not a lot of goals and very counter-led. So I don't see Leicester attracting our attention. Here's the big question, Dan. 3 went down last season. It was the teams that were promoted. I know you won't want to say it'll be the same again, but what do you feel? What's your heart and head telling you?
It's going to be. I'd like to think some stay up. I think they're in better places than, but definitely Sheffield United. I hope they're not as naive as Burnley, and they should have a better squad than Luton in theory. But if Leicester didn't have this pending points deduction, I think they might stay up. But we know, Mark, they seem to make that up as they go along. That could be anything, to be honest.
You see them going in, do you? I mean, I think it's Ipswich you've got the chance, right?
I'd see maybe, but they could also just do really badly. I think they need some players.
You haven't given me too much confidence in their chances.
No,
the problem is you've got to think is like, who do they finish above?
Yeah,
like Everton won't be down there again. I don't think. Forest
will.
Maybe
Brighton probably will. Now we've lost Pascal Gross, another child managing us.
That is the thing, isn't it? Because Luton and Forest were in this situation last season, and I was looking up thinking, well, who are we going to finish above? And lo and behold, we didn't finish above anyone but the bottom 3. And I wasn't surprised, right? So that's what we're looking at the same here, isn't it?
I'm a bit worried about Wolves as well, just because their start is so bad. That do the owners panic and sack O'Neill, and then you get into
those first 6. They could lose all of those games. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, so it's going to be tricky. I like maybe 1 or 2 of them to stay up, but I don't know. Maybe Southampton do have experience at this level, but it's going to depend if Martin is willing to adjust his philosophy. I think. But,
if Martin Ball's effective, and if it's not, does he adjust quickly? Unlike Company, that's the thing. And I don't know if you've seen a Russell Martin team, but Swansea came to the City Ground, and I've never seen anything like it. They make the shortest, most non-impactful passes you ever seen. They will literally just do that between defenders. And goal kicks, like 3 of them go back, and they have the ball for like periods of time, and you just think, well, it's going absolutely nowhere. We beat them 5-1 on the day, I think.
I just can't see
20% possession, and we absolutely thrashed them.
Is that going to translate to the Premier League?
Better players, though. He's got better players.
He's got better players.
Yeah, he's going up against 10 times better players than the ones he's got trying to do that system. It's the press as well. How resistant are they to the press doing that? I prefer the counter-attacking teams than that come up. I always give them more of a chance than the ones that try and actually play a bit of football. They tend to get battered.
We'll see. I'd like to think that they survive. I'm like you, Dan. I want them to, because it'll be refreshing for the Premier League to do that. But as a support of a team that could be down there, I'm going to say, well, I'll be cool to them. Okay, let's look at your team then.
I just want to quickly shout out to Ryan, because he just mentioned when I mentioned about the rotation with Davis, he does actually rotate really well with Palace.
With Anderson,
If you go back to the last screen. Because you could play, say you've got Anderson, for example, you get Brentford, West Ham for the first 2, and then you bring in Davis and play Fulham when Anderson's got Chelsea. Then you keep Anderson in for Leicester. Then you've got Man United. Well, then you bring Davies back in, who's got Southampton. And then you play Anderson against Everton. So that gives you essentially Brentford, West Ham. Brentford, West Ham, Fulham, Leicester, Southampton, Everton. That's pretty decent. That's pretty decent for 6. Sorry, it took me so long. I couldn't bloody read what I was going from.
It's very warm. We're going to look at rotation pairs in one of the shows before we start. But yeah, I mean, that gives you a way in, doesn't it? Maybe lose Castagna then, maybe.
Well, I've got Munoz, for example, so I could sub him out for
Munoz.
Davis.
Davis is the dream ticket.
Yeah,
two attacking fullbacks.
Oh,
wing back.
Dreams
on. That's what I want. I want that. I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, I know they're not going to be the favoured picks in they're non-optimal, should we say? Suboptimal.
It's fun though, isn't it?
But it's a lot more fun owning players like that. That's for sure. So you, Dan, you didn't take long to put this. Did you generally not have an FPL team before tonight?
I literally just went auto picked it. So this is now my team. I'd done it in about 2 minutes.
You got your ID and you auto picked, and you left it at that until tonight.
I've left it. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a bit busy with the championship at the minute as it's not, but yeah, I'm not sure this sticks, but it's okay.
Just for the podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Az, do you want to read through it?
Yeah, it's Flecken in goal with Vardy, Porro and Anderson, Salah, Gordon, Nkunku, Hudson-Odoi, Armstrong captain, love that, Isak, Haaland, Areola, Mikalenko, Barco and Bergval. The only one I don't really like is Hudson-Odoi, I think, in that team. Don't think he's going to be a sure starter.
I've got $1 million in the bank, but yeah.
No, put him up to a 6-5.
So what's interesting there after we spoke tonight, Salah and Haaland, right? We're seeing more and more teams go for both. Over those 2 games Ipswich have got where they're going to be settling in, it could go one or two ways. They could put up a fight and keep the scores down and maybe get a point in against Liverpool and only lose 2-0 at City. But from everything you said tonight, I'm leaning towards they're going to be 6, 7, 8 goals conceded over those 2 games, and so not having Salah and Haaland is kind of worrying because we don't know where to go elsewhere in Liverpool. I know Jota's reared his head after the friendly last night, but was that a no-brainer for you? I mean, Salah and Haaland because of those fixtures?
Yeah, I think so. To be honest, I haven't really tried a draft without them, but yeah, I'd like even during pre-season, Chelsea have conceded a few goals, and I think it might be take a while for the Chelsea team to adapt. So I think I've picked Nkunku just because he's massively underpriced from what his potential could be. But yeah, I think you have to pick Haaland and Salah. Well, I think you do anyway.
I'm not going to show. We're not going to show our drafts tonight because there's at least 2 more black boxes to come before the season kicks off.
I've made lots of changes.
Yeah, I know. I want to see. I definitely want to see this, and I want to see if you stick with Davis because I want him to. And I think after what we've heard from Dan tonight, I think I'm settled on him being the only promoted player that I'm genuinely thinking about before the start of the season. I think João Pedro nicks it because he's training now, and I think I'm expecting Brighton to do well still, and I still think João Pedro will start, and he's got the pen, so I think he covers the same factors as Armstrong. So I do think it's Davis for me, and not anyone else. And then we'll see how Russell Martin settles and see what Cooper can get out of Leicester. Is that a fair conclusion, Dan, from what we've been through tonight? Yeah,
I think there's too many question marks with the promoted sides. I think long term Leicester could be the one that stay up if they don't have a massive points deduction, but there's just no options there, I don't think. And yeah, it's pointing towards Davis if you want to bench him for the first 2 games, I think. Yeah,
that points deduction will hang over them. I know what it's like to know that that's coming, and Cooper obviously will have to get through that again, and he went through some of that with Forest as well. So as you had Davis before you came into the show, and you're ending the show even more confident in that.
I think so. Yeah, I was going to say I think that rotation with Palace changes it, because I'm definitely going to be starting with a Palace defender, either Anderson or Munoz. Lets me keep playing Robinson. because obviously the fixtures are so nice for him, and rotate my attacking fullbacks. Right? I mean, it's going to be a disaster, though, isn't it? Munoz is going to score against Chelsea, and he'll be on my bench, and Leif Davis will concede 7 to bloody Everton or whatever it is. It's just written in the stars. You can see it already, but yeah, part of the fun.
It is part of the fun.
He says with a twitch in his eye.
Yeah, I'd love the promoted teams to be giving us more options, but I think that it is kind of wait and see who else comes in and see how they settle. But Davis and the off for me. So Dan, thank you very much for joining us. All I can say is your insight was very, very valuable, and has learnt a lot tonight.
I did. Absolutely.
I guess you've got a busy week. I mean, talk a bit about Gaffer's launch. I mean, it's going to be, well, it's already out there, of course, but you've got the big season kickoff. It's a week tonight, isn't it?
Friday, I think. Is it Thursday today?
Yeah,
Thursday.
week
I'm losing track of days. So me and Angus are recording 3 preview pods that will be out over the weekend, beginning of next week. Probably about 10-15 minutes on each team. We'll go over the key players and everything like that. So, it's a busy couple of days for me and Angus. But yeah, like I said, if any of you, anyone who's listening wants to play, it's a great game, and it's a bit different for FPL. A lot more unpredictable, but the championship is just a ridiculous league, and it's a lot of fun. The fantasy game, it's a lot more high scoring. So, especially when you play Boost, you have weeks where you'll hit 200 points and things like that. So,
blimey, God,
yeah,
remember that as. Just before we go, how do you think Luton will get on? Do you reckon you'll be able to push playoffs at least? I'd have thought, but
we've lost obviously Barkley and Osho. We've managed to keep all the other key players. Haven't signed too many players. We signed Baptiste from Brentford and a young, highly rated wing back from Arsenal. So I'm guessing we'll bring in 2 or 3 loans, and hopefully go for the automatics, but hopefully get the playoffs. And then I would say it's a lottery, but it's not really the playoffs. If you're good at it, you go up, and if you don't, you stay down. So yeah,
I mean, Luton have got the know-how, and they've got the manager, and the manager can make a lot of difference. So I do think inevitably they're going to be up there for sure. And that Kenilworth ground and the crowd and stuff, it's so difficult to go there. It's a horrible place to go. So I think Luton will do well again. So best of luck for Luton, of course, and to you. Sorry, Dan, you're going to get in there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's going to be a bit different. For a while, we've been the underdogs, and we'll probably be one of the fancy teams. So yeah, we're going to have to got a few different challenges this season. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm intrigued to see how we do, and we don't have VAR, so that's a bonus.
Oh God, yeah, it's going to be a shock to the system when the goals go in and you don't. Oh, where's the? Oh,
I can celebrate.
Yeah. Exactly. Celebrate goal without even having to worry. Yeah. I've forgotten what it's like not to have it now. So, yeah. It didn't do Forest very well, that's for sure. I won't be... let's see how we do this season with that, and we'll see how we do with penalties. Those things are going to be factors which are in the Premier League, which are very different when you go down to the Championship, that's for sure. It's been a long memory, that has, for you, and not so much for me. I don't want to go back, but we'll see how we get on.
We've had some scares.
Relegation as tonight.
Well,
I don't really trust Nuno to do a good job. I think he'll be the first manager sacked. That's my prediction.
No chance at all. No. Anyway, thanks Dan. Thanks for your help tonight, and best of luck with the launch for the season in Gaffer. Best of luck for Luton, and it's a good night for me.
Good night.
Good night.